Welcome to Sausage on a Fork, a podcast dedicated to the UK's longest running children's drama programme, Grange Hill. My name's Neil, and in each episode I'll interview a former cast member about their life before, during and after their time on the programme. Okay, welcome to the latest episode of Sausage on a Fork, and I am absolutely delighted to say that I have been joined by none other than Nigel Miles-Thomas, who played Mr Ray Davies. Nigel, welcome to Sausage on a Fork.
Thank you very, very much. It's great to be here.
Not at all, not at all. What we'll do, Nigel, is we'll start this episode the way we start every episode, and if you can tell us sort of how you got into acting.
Well, yeah, I never even thought about it. I was in a comprehensive school in Wembley in North London, drifting around playing cricket and doing various things like that, but never really thinking of what I was going to do. And then this theatre and education group came to the school, and they were doing Shakespeare, and they wanted people to join in. So my English teacher said, "Oh, we've got an actor in the class," which was me. So I was really pleased about this because I thought I think this is pretty cool. So I then did all the school plays and youth drama. Went to drama school in London. It all kind of went seamlessly well. It was something that I just loved, and that was. I went to drama school in the arts educational schools in 1976. So
Right.
Fair old time ago, and I'm still doing it. So I still love doing it, and so it was basically, I think, I'm always pleased to do myself going into schools, because I knew how hugely important it was for me.
Yeah, I mean,
to come into my school, otherwise I wouldn't have done it.
That's it. Like, that's quite a when you look back there, if they had never come into your school, do you think you would have ever done acting at all?
No, I don't. I can't see the link.
Right.
Because I just needed some vote of confidence, I think.
Right, okay.
When you're that sort of gangly 16-year-old, 70, you're a bit lost,
Yeah.
So this was something that gave me because I wasn't particularly academic, it just gave me a focus and also girls were interested in me.
It's okay.
It was a win-win, that I could find something that girls were interested in me. And I'm not saying that's the motivation of my career, but it was something at 16 or 17 and into drama school, which it's just great fun. And
Brilliant. And so, did you get much work then in your early days then?
Well, I did. I got an agent fairly quick, and then I did quite a lot of theatre. I love theatre. It's really my comfort zone in many ways, I guess. So I did repertory theatre, and I was in a medieval theatre company for a couple of years, and a classical theatre company. Then I got a part in Doctor Who.
Oh, right, okay.
Which was my first television, and it was really amazing because I love Doctor Who, and to play this quite good character for a couple of episodes, and Sylvester McCoy, and it was pretty. It's called Dragonfire, this episode, and I still get a lot of very extraordinary letters all these years later from that. And in fact, the director of that episode was Nigel Clough, and he was the one that when I auditioned for Grange Hill, he was directing the first one. But in between that, I'd done all these sort of things like Minder and The Professionals and Dick Emery and all these sort of very iconic, in a way. As you look back, they're very iconic. At the time, you don't really think so.
Well, sorry, you've just mentioned Doctor Who there. Am I right in thinking that Stuart Organ was also
he was
in those episodes as well? I dropped that link earlier on there as well. And you've mentioned Dick Emery.
Yeah,
I mean, what a legend!
It was the most extraordinary experience. I got Carl. It was a Christmas sort of special, and there was it was on location. It was about a public school called the Cheatwell Academy for Young Gentlemen, run by the vicar, the vicar. And Nyreen Dawn Porter, who was another legend at the time because of all the programs that she does.
Yeah.
She played the matron, and suddenly I was in this world of this very very peculiar man
Yeah.
who I think he motivated himself for the girls as well because he
Right.
always asked me when he wasn't dressed up as one of these bizarre characters. If I got any girls coming to the hotel in the evening, I said, sorry, Dick, no, I'm not in your league, mate. But he was a brilliant actor, and I learnt a lot. I played the head boy called Hog,
Right.
and it was a really good part. I had a brilliant time on that, and
Yeah.
I can't say got to know him because he was quite uh, an elusive character to get to know personally, but it was an experience, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
And
Harry,
also,
Harry Worth as
that's
well.
what I was just about to ask.
Bloody hell!
That's
I
leading
mean,
you into
another
Harry Worth as
extraordinary
well.
experience. They're just like he was just like how he is. I mean, there was no real character acting for him. I learnt a lot because they were live, these shows. You had to
Yeah.
do it in front of the studio audience, and so
Yeah.
yeah. And then Metal Mickey, another was one of the monkeys. Mickey Dolan
Mickey Dolenz, yeah.
was the director, and it was really cool. Um, yeah, so those are the 80s, and I did all that sort of stuff, and then into the 90s, still doing my theatre and stuff, and then Grange Hill for those 2 years in
Yeah.
the middle of that, and then life just sort of keeps going, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, so you've mentioned about the fact that you knew the director and stuff. And was the part like was it given to you or did you have to audition for that
No,
one?
I went along to the BBC and I sat and had an interview. It was initially for just one episode,
Right.
because it was like he was a covering teacher or something. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't expect it to be any more than one, and then it sort of grew into quite a few episodes after that.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting experience for me. I don't know whether I set my stall out right. Time goes so quick, and I don't think I really thought about who
Right.
this guy was, and I should have. I think in reflection, I should have been a bit meaner or a bit more of a guy. I was kind of just this like nice
Yeah.
guy. And I think I set my stall out a bit too nice, and
Yeah.
I don't think I got. I don't think I don't know. It's a funny
Yeah.
game that I don't
So
really know, to be honest
so
with you.
so were you already aware of Grange Hill?
Yeah,
Obviously, right. So okay.
yeah,
So had you watched it and stuff like that, or was
yeah,
it right? Okay. So
yeah.
so on that, because obviously Mr. Davis was a PE teacher. Now,
Mm,
when in the week leading up to an episode being released of the podcast, I play a guest to guest competition on social media, and the
mhm.
first person that guesses who the guest is going to be gets to send in a question for the next guest.
Ah,
Now, I've had a question in from the person that won the last one was called Chris Blake, and he says, as Mr. Davis was a PE teacher, Grange Hill had obviously had some really memorable PE teachers previously. There was
yes.
Mr. Foster, Bullet Baxter, Mr. Robson. Did you ever feel any pressure taking on the role of the PE teacher in Grange Hill, or is it just one of these things where I'm going in, I'm acting, and I'm doing it that
Yeah,
way?
no, I don't think I gave it too much thought, and I think I probably should have done.
Right.
Because in again, you always think about what you could have done, what you should have done.
Yeah.
I guess it's more or less the script I was given, and there, there was uh, never anything that led me to be
Yeah.
sinister in any way.
Right.
It was always the guy who was kind of knocking on the parents' door or at the staff meetings,
Yeah.
dinners out.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever felt that because I love character acting. I think
Uh-huh.
that's what I do. I don't think I developed a character as such. I felt I was being just using my own physicality because
Yeah.
obviously, in those days, being what the size I was good casting for a PE teacher. So I just kind of just blew the whistle and said, "Come on, boys,
Yeah. And were
get
you,
changed."
were you into sport anyway? Were you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I loved it, and that. So anytime we were on a field, I felt really at home. And in fact, there was a rugby scene, and the guy who was supposed to kick the ball over the post, he made it about 3 yards.
Right.
So I behind the camera did the kicking of the ball for him,
Right. Okay.
get it over the post. But
Okay.
interestingly, it was beginning at that time to if a boy was hurt on the field,
Yeah.
you had to be, you were told, if no, you can't put your arm around him, and you
Oh,
can't,
right. I
because
get
that's
you.
so instinctive to
Yeah.
because I've always taught, even not like other jobs I've done coaching cricket and rugby and football.
Right.
It was always something I loved,
Yeah.
but I was, in those days, earlier than that, I was pretty hands on. If somebody had hurt themselves, I'd
Yeah.
pick them up and
And
put my arm around
it's
them. So
natural, isn't it? Yeah. It's a
it's a
natural
very natural instinct, and I
instinct. Yeah.
and
Of
I I
course.
couldn't do that. Yeah, which
Yeah.
is, that's how it is. But yeah, it kind of trundled on like that, really, without.
Yeah.
In fact, the other teachers gave me the Ray name,
Ah, right. Okay.
for the obvious
Yeah.
connection there.
The kinks
Um,
there, like, yeah.
the kinks. And I think they were trying to help me find, something.
Yeah.
It's just such a weird world. I don't know.
Okay.
It's
All right. Well, what we'll do is we'll go through, look, because I've made a few notes on, some of the things. So you started in series 18, which was on air in 1995. And the very first time we see Mr. Davies is, as you mentioned earlier on a staff night out. And when I watched it the other day, everyone looks really cramped around that table. There
Yeah.
wasn't sort of much room for anyone to move. Did it feel like that when you were filming it?
Yeah, it was. I can remember it. It was an Indian restaurant in Stanmore, and it
Right,
was about 9 o'clock in the morning,
right.
and nobody. We had all this food and beer that nobody particularly wanted to eat or drink. Yes, it was cramped. Yeah, yeah, and I kind of just sort of sat there. But I did because I'm a North Londoner, so I knew the restaurant.
Right.
Well, it was in Stanmore. Yeah,
And you were sat next to Lee Corns
there you go.
in that as well. I mean, what another comedy legend
A
there.
legend. Yeah,
Was
yeah,
he?
yeah.
Everyone says he was just as funny as you'd expect him to be.
Yes, yeah, he was lovely. I mean, the whole of the team were supportive, good fun.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed them. There was no ego thing going on there. And Stuart was absolutely lovely as a
yeah,
bloke. I really, really liked him.
yeah. Okay, and then the next sort of thing we see Mr. Davis was when they'd introduced like houses into Grange Hill, so they had the inter-house competitions going on, and there was a basketball competition, and there was some confusion over which team some players should be playing for. But then Mr. Davis comes in and into Grange Hill fashion sorts everything out for
Yeah,
everyone there.
yeah,
And then
remember that? Yeah,
you mentioned about the school field earlier on, and there was when Julie Corrigan was staging a protest about the road being built, and she was camping on the field on the football pitch, and she wouldn't move for Mr. Davis, but she moved for Mr. Robson.
you see, this is it.
Because he managed to persuade her to move off the pitch, but she could stay on the field. And then there was the rugby match that you mentioned earlier on,
Yeah,
and it was between the girls. There was a girls' rugby match, I think it was going on. Now, you refereed that. Did you have much experience with rugby? Because I know you said you were
yeah.
quite
You see, this
sporty,
is
like.
totally my comfort zone. I
Right.
I, I probably didn't. I think I struggled into the modern game of rugby with all the laws, but yeah, no, I didn't ever have to research anything to do with the
Right.
field. They never did cricket, and
Right.
that's my main game. I played it
Uh-huh.
all night, but I loved all the stuff on the field. I
Right.
think
When
completely.
when we've had lads on who were in some of the football matches on Grange Hill, the lads have said that what they would do is they would play normally, but then they would film some sort of choreographed bits.
Yes, definitely.
Was the
Like the
was
kicking of the goal.
Yeah, was the rugby any different to that?
Yes, it was completely right. We'll play a bit now. we'll stop a bit and we'll stage something. So
Right.
it certainly wasn't a free flowing game, because I'm not sure that some of the kids that were playing really knew what the hell was
Yeah.
going on. So I think I kind of I coached them a bit
Yeah.
about the ball needs to go backwards, things like that, you know.
Yeah. Because some of the girls you see look like they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, yeah,
Some of
yeah,
the
of course.
extras
Yeah, of course.
looked like they knew what they were doing. Okay, and then there was a bit where it was parents' evening.
Yes, I remember it
Now,
well.
Mr. Davis wore a suit for parents' evening, and the kids weren't used to seeing him in a suit. And
Yeah.
Julie Corrigan again and Robin Stone asked him if he was going to a 70s revival because of the suit that he was wearing. And he said he wasn't going to buy a new suit for parents' evening. But he had to make an effort as the parents were coming to see him. And Julie said to him, "Well, my mum never bothered with my PE report." And Mr. Davis said, "That's just as well, Julie." And you know, when I watched that, and I thought that's very of its time. I'm convinced if a teacher was to say that now to a kid would go home straight away, and there'd be all sorts of repercussions about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, the thing with that episode, it then moves on just a little bit where Mr. Davis is sat at a table on his own, and none of the parents were coming to speak to him. There was one parent walked over, realised who Mr. Davis was and that he was PA, and she walked away. And it got to the point where even Mr. Parrott asked him to go and make a cup of tea because he was getting snowed under, and Mr. Davis didn't have anyone coming. But then a mum came over to talk to Mr. Davis, and she did say she only came over because she felt sorry for him because no one was coming to speak to him, and he was on his own. But then they actually got talking, and they start finding out a little bit more about each other. And Mr. Davis found out that the mum was divorced and her ex-husband was now living in Scotland. And then she asked him about his wife, and he said that he'd never been married. And it looked like that story was actually going to evolve into something, but it was never mentioned again. Was there
No,
any reason on that?
I thought that that was going to be. I was kind of waiting for a bit of a storyline. I mean, a
Yeah.
proper storyline, and that it was. It just stopped at the paths. And we had a Christmas lunch
Uh-huh.
that year. All the cast and everything, and the writers. And I think I remember saying to one of the writers, "I said, you should. I hope you can pursue that
Yeah.
storyline," because I kind of felt I needed something to get uh,
Yeah,
my
because
teeth into, you know.
you see a couple of the teachers, Mr. Robson, Mr. Brisley, actually talking about the fact that Mr. Davis is talking to the mum. He said, but they never ever thought, Mr. Robson said, well, his son was never into sport when I was the PE teacher. And you just think something's going to happen here. But then
Yeah, yeah.
it was never mentioned again. And
That's never
it just
never
seemed
mentioned.
really strange that
Yeah,
he
no,
was,
I know.
it,
I
it,
remember that. I remember that very thought. And it's a fair few years ago, but I did think, well, this could be good. This could be a good one. Yeah.
because that would have been something that Grange Hill hadn't explored. I mean, I don't know if it was because there was no kids involved in the storyline or what. I don't know. It just seemed to be.
Yes,
It seemed,
I think that that's unless it directly affected the child,
yeah,
they wouldn't have just done it for the
yeah,
grown up
because the
storyline.
child as well wasn't a child that we knew about. His name was Neville, and there was no Neville on screen at the time.
No.
Oh, okay. So then that was pretty much the end of series 18. But then so we move on to series 19. And at first, Mr. Davis is sort of quite involved in the first few episodes. He just seemed to get used quite a bit more for the first few. First of all, did you have anything to do with that? Did you have was that your doing at all?
No,
No.
you literally waited for your script to come through
Right.
the land on the mat. There was never any consultation or anything or script development with certainly not with
Right.
me. I just waited for my script to go up to Elstree and rehearse it, and then
Uh-huh.
and then the filming days would come later. So no, I kept feeling that, not. I never felt secure within it.
Right, I
You
get
get
you.
that instinct as in any job, I guess, in
Yeah,
life. If they're not developing you, or you're not being you kind of get that feeling of, oh, you
yeah.
know, maybe I am not mean enough.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. What I'm trying to get over is the fact that there's a few bits where there's a badminton lesson, and there's a couple of new kids in the lesson. So there's a new girl called Laurie Watson, who actually introduces herself as Laurie Watson, but tells Mr. Davies that he can call her a mouthy little madam because she was one, basically. And to which he replies, "Well, I'll make a note of that one later on." And then what I liked in this episode, as nice as Mr. Davies was, because you're saying he wasn't particularly mean. As nice as he was, he says to the kids, "Well, we're having a few problems here, so everyone, sit down and shut up. Sit down and shut up." And you, whoa, where's that come from? Like, and then what? There's another new kid, Chris Longworth, who was played by Ben Freeman.
Yes, I remember him well.
Yeah, so he asks Mr. Davis asks Chris to demonstrate because he can he can play badminton a bit, and then they get a rally going and all that. And again, you seem to know what you were doing in that. So was badminton another one of yours?
Yeah, honestly, that's why that theatre group hadn't come into my school, all
Right.
I'd have done with my life was hit balls and shuttlecocks, because I love sport. I still do.
Yeah.
So yes, there was a real comfort zone with anything. There was no game that I felt they would have thrown at me I couldn't have
Right.
handled it.
Okay. Okay. And
No,
then
not now. It would be a different game, but
right. Okay. And then Mr. Davis picked Chris for the house badminton team. And then Chris said he wouldn't play. One of the other kids had been winding him up basically about, saying he thought he was a superstar and stuff. And then Chris was actually quite rude to Mr. Davis, so Mr. Davis sent him along to Mr. Robson.
yeah,
Um,
I remember that.
and then because there was always a bit of mystery around Chris, and what it was basically, his family were really religious, so he went to church an awful lot. And when Chris apologized to Mr. Davis, and then Mr. Robson realised that Mr. Davis had wanted Chris to play badminton after school. Mr. Robson sort of explained to Mr. Davis why Chris couldn't, and Chris was sort of, although he'd apologised, was a little bit more off the hook.
Yeah.
And then also, I think in the next episode there was reports of someone having a gun in the school,
Yeah.
and Mr. Davis was charged with the responsibility of searching the bags, the classroom where the air gun was, basically. And it was poor old Kevin Jenkins, who wasn't a naughty kid. It was Wayne Sutcliffe's gun, but Kevin was the one who had it, and he managed to get it into the waistband of his trousers. When Mr. Davis checked the bag, he knew something was up with Kevin at the time. When he checks the bag and sees it's empty, he then asks Kevin to stand up and to open his jacket. And when Kevin opens the jacket, he gets him to pull his jumper up, and we see the gun. And Kevin sort of panics a little bit, and he ends up accidentally shooting Sarah Jane. Now, when you think about that in a kids' TV program, we always say this about Grange Hill, and that must have been quite a subject for a kids' TV program
Yeah.
to be tackling. But again, it was showing the fact that kids did this, because I knew lads in school who had air guns, and occasionally they would get brought in to school, but they were never quite as brazen as they were as Wayne was with his. But I just thought, it was good that
Yeah.
it
They
was
never shied away from anything. It's great.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and it was good that it was your character was the one sort of, dealing with all that, and the fact
Yeah.
that Mr. Davis had said to Mr. Robson, because I don't think Mr. Robson was head at the time. I think it was
No, there wasn't a head. He was like acting head.
yeah, Mr. McNabb. You never saw Mr. McNabb, or if you did, it
No,
was
never
very,
saw it.
very, very sporadically. And Mr. Davis was like, "Don't worry, we'll look after this. We'll sort this out." And you think, okay, Mr. Davis is getting some airtime here and doing quite a bit. And then you also mentioned before about the sore ankle, the sore foot, which was Wayne. And
Yep.
obviously, he said that he told Mr. Davies that he couldn't play football because he had this sore foot, and he didn't have a note. So Mr. Davies said, "Well, you can play in goal." And when you just think he's got a really bad, we don't see the foot at this point, and Mr. Davies doesn't know how bad it is, and he just thinks Wayne's trying to get out of lessons. So you can go in goal now. I've been involved in scouts all my life, and I have to tell quite a similar story to to this. There was when I was actually in scouts, so we're talking a fair bit of time ago. We were playing football on a field close by one day, and this kid, I forget how it happened, but the ball hit his arm basically. And he said, "Oh, this is really sore." So the leaders asked him to go in goal just so he wasn't running around and stuff. And we found out the week after that he'd actually broken his arm, and the scout leaders had put him in goal just there with this broken arm. And when I was watching that the other day with Wayne, I just thought that is so similar to what my poor mate went through all them years ago.
Just
Um,
going goal. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
in another PE lesson, Wayne fell over, and it became apparent that he damaged his foot a lot more than he was letting on. And when you see the foot, it looks horrible. It's all out of joint, and it's all purple and everything. So Mr. Davis is the one that takes him to hospital. And again, you think you must be thinking at this point, oh, they're using me a lot more. Am I get what's going to happen? And
Yeah, I think there's always that, isn't there? I mean, it's the old soap thing of,
yeah,
people waiting to be killed off,
yeah,
or do I live
yeah. Because
live
Wayne,
another day? I don't know. I think a lot of people feel so insecure,
yeah,
especially because of the nature of the business. You get something that's,
yeah,
paying the bills for a while. It's
and
it's
because
kind of, you don't want to lose it.
exactly, yeah. I mean, it just seemed that Mr. Davis was really involved, and Wayne
Do
tells
you
that
do you remember that there was a scene, I can't remember, trying to think of his name. He's really well known now. There was a bullying, and I went to the house, and the uncle or the dad opened the door,
it's
and he's really well
it's the
known.
brother, it's Wayne's brother, it's Eddie Marson played
Yeah,
played
exactly.
Wayne's brother,
Yeah,
yeah, and
and I gave him a lift home to the station.
yeah,
and
yeah.
little did I know how well he do it. Yeah,
Well,
Eddie Martin. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, because Wayne was told to take time off. Wayne had basically told the doctors that he'd done it playing football when really he dropped the weight on it, or his brother had dropped the weight on the
that's
foot.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
Wayne was told to take 2 weeks off, but Wayne's brother, as you say, played by Eddie Marson, was horrible. Now, Eddie Marson's brilliant in anything he does anyway, but he's particularly good
Yeah.
as Wayne's brother because he was just horrible to him.
That's who it was. Yeah, yeah. I
So,
remember knocking on the door and him,
yeah.
that face looking at you. Yeah.
um, and and Wayne ended up going back to school because basically his brother kicked him out and said, "You're not staying here." And you see Mr. Davis saying to him, "What are you doing here?" And Wayne's like, "Oh, I didn't want to miss out on any school." And Mr. Davis says, "Oh, I'm really pleased with your new approach." And then we didn't see Mr. Davis again.
That's it.
After
He's
that,
gone.
he just disappeared in the middle of series 19. Was there
I
any
know.
any
I know.
reason for that?
No, I got because I was phoning. I phoned my agent at the time, and I was saying, "What's the bookings? Am I
Yeah,
getting, And she said, "No, I'll chase them." And then I think they said to her, "Oh, we just want to go in a different direction," which
right,
is usually the kind way of saying
right. I get you.
that. Well, that's it. That's the kind killing off.
Uh-huh.
That and I always thought that go in another direction was mean because they want somebody who's mean and
Yeah, right. I
and
get you.
and I went, oh, I played him too nice. I should have. I don't know. It's just how life goes, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, so people that listen to the podcast will know this, and they probably get fed up with me saying this, that I use IMDb for a lot of my research, and I know it's not the most reliable source of information, IMDb. But after Grange Hill, there doesn't seem to be anything else on your
No,
IMDb profile.
it's true because I kind of I, I did. What did I lose confidence? I just went back into. I started to direct things, and I found my personal choice of waiting for
Right.
the old agent to phone me up. So I started to create my own stuff, and I
Oh,
went over to Hong Kong
uh-huh.
and did an arts festival there, and then I stayed. I lived in Hong Kong, and
Wow.
uh, I got married and lived between London and Hong Kong, and I did a lot of dinner theatre, and I was bringing people, really good people, out to like Roger Lloyd Pack and Susan Penhalligan, people like that, to do plays, which I was in, and I loved it, and so I became this kind of. There was a guy back in the day, you probably won't even remember. He was called Derek Nimmo,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he used to do a lot of these tours of Asia and dinner theatre in the hotels. So I'm still kind of doing that now.
Right.
I do a lot of self-promotional producing. I live in Edinburgh now, and this year I produced 13 shows at the festival.
Wow.
So I think at that point, where I don't know how old I was, well, 30s.
Right.
I just thought, I've got to try and wear a few more hats if I want to stay in this business, which I really like, and things are not, they're not working out. I want to have a substance to what I'm doing,
Uh-huh.
and the theatre always has given me that, and so is directing and producing, and that's really how I kind of have maintained my life really up
Right.
until as we speak now.
Brilliant, brilliant. Oh, just going back to Derek Nimmo there, I always picture Derek Nimmo as playing like a clergyman
Yes,
or
right.
a
Oh,
priest.
golly gosh, he used to. I mean, again, I mean, it makes me feel sound so old because all these Dick Emerys and Harry were. I mean, this is virtually black and white,
Yeah,
But I was part of that kind of setup, and which I don't feel that that I'm in my mid 60s, but you have to own up to it. But um, yeah, Derek Nimmo, yeah. But
so
he used to that cash was king in those days. And
yeah,
he used to bring all the money home in the stage manager's overcoat. He was like the Michelin man with all
yeah.
the money because he never declared anything. But yeah, yeah.
So
It's a funny game, but you're right. It's sort of it kind of after Grange Hill television wise. I did some commercials and stuff, the odd commercials here and there. But I thought the agent life, I don't know, I hadn't really found my niche, and I just thought I like putting on things rather than you
yeah.
know.
So so what is it then? What is it about theatre more than television that
Well,
you
I think it's what I all the time I was in Grange Hill.
uh-huh.
You rehearse, you get the script, then you go and you rehearse it, and then 14 days later you get to do quite a big scene with a lot of movement. And I never felt as comfortable as I do. And
Right.
when I'm on stage, I feel totally at home, and I know where I'm going. Da, 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 da. There was always an edge of, and it's for me being good at acting is feeling confident and comfortable, and
Yeah.
not under pressure in a way. It's a strange feeling of before you enter a stage and you're behind the curtain, you go, shit, this is all those people out there.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you're on, you feel all right.
Yeah.
But I think in the filming side of it, I don't think I ever felt coming into Stuart's office, Stuart Organ's office. And I never felt the complete relaxation of like I do on stage. It,
Yeah.
because I hadn't done it enough to feel comfortable,
Yeah.
if that makes any kind of sense at all. Because you do things out of context, out of sequence, and I guess if you do it all the time,
Yeah.
and then it becomes easier. But I don't think I ever did it enough to make myself as comfortable as I do when I go
Yeah.
on stage.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's just strange for me hearing that because obviously you're saying about feeling more relaxed on stage, and please don't take this the wrong way. There's more risk isn't there, in the
Yeah,
theatre?
it's danger. I mean, there's huge danger, but you kind of get you kind of your inner mechanics work for you when you're on
Right.
stage. You don't. Whereas in on film, they always say, "Oh, cut,
Yeah.
let's do it again."
Yeah.
And I always found doing it again was the worst thing. I always and there was a few scenes in Grange Hill that I used to do without having to do any retakes, and it
Right.
was a lovely feeling because everyone was happy with that. But as soon as you kind of mess it up once, or and then you go, oh, I don't want to mess it up again, and then you get the sort of little inner demon inside you going, oh, don't mess it up once. And some one word that you just say normally suddenly turns into something that is it's really odd. Whereas on stage the demons aren't there.
Yeah.
You're just and more of a character as well. Because I'm not I think Mr. Davis was closer to me as a
Right.
character
Yeah.
than like what I'm playing now or what I've played many parts over the year. I can disappear within that person, and through the right rehearsal schedule and the repetition of performance, you kind of you know have a different angle on everything, really.
Yeah. And I suppose as well, that instant reaction, don't you? You get that instant reaction from your audience as
Mm,
well when you're on stage, and that must be
mm.
a tremendous feeling as
It's
well.
it's wonderful. I mean, the best reaction. I used to go and pick my daughter up from school when I was in Grange Hill, and that was she used to find it quite cool
Yeah.
that Dad, who was in Grange Hill, was picking me up from school, and the other kids would kind of it gave her kudos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but I didn't. I never knew ever if anyone. And I'll have to be honest with you, I couldn't watch any of them.
Right.
I haven't watched any of them
Right. Okay.
because I feel so self-conscious
Yeah.
of
No, that.
myself. And I've watched other things I've been in, but for some reason I it was like watching Spurs Arsenal the other day. My Spurs team. It was torture to watch it. I was supposed to enjoy football. It was awful. It was hiding behind the sofa. I had to turn over at one point because I couldn't bear it.
Right.
So it's a bit like that when I hear myself or see myself. When I'm acting on stage, you do get that instant
Yeah.
response and people instantly applaud. But I don't know whether any of the things I ever did in Grange Hill, anybody ever said, "Oh, I like that" or not,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I probably didn't want to hear. I probably didn't want
Well,
to hear that they didn't like it.
well, you just said there about the football. I'm an Everton supporter.
Oh,
There's nobody turns off the television more than Everton supporters. So I wouldn't worry too much there. Like, so yeah. So you've mentioned then that you are, you've been directing shows and stuff. So what are you doing currently?
well, about a year ago, I played Sherlock Holmes in a play
Right.
called The Return of Sherlock Holmes,
Uh-huh.
and I suddenly found a character which is physically perfect.
Right.
I can do him really well. I mean, even I, the Mr. Shy, know that I'm doing a good job. And then I got asked to do a solo Sherlock Holmes called Sherlock Holmes: The Last Act,
Oh.
which is about when Watson dies and he goes back to Baker Street after the funeral,
Uh-huh.
and it does a sort of retelling of the whole of all their adventures together, and it's been brilliant for me. I've done it for about 8 months now, and I've got a lot planned with it.
Uh-huh.
Because it's a bit like the old Doctor Who thing. There's an international following Sherlock Holmes, Conan
Right.
Doyle. So that's what I'm doing, and I'll probably be doing it, all the way. I'm going to Adelaide Festival
Wow.
in Australia, and then for the Edinburgh Festival again next year. So that's my immediate plans.
Yeah.
And somebody's writing a play about for me about
Wow.
Cinderella, uh, Prince Charming. What happened to Prince
All
Charming?
right. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So because I directed in America Jar Jar Gabor in a pantomime,
Wow.
which is another hour of your time. But so that was an extraordinary experience. So pantomimes, things like that, I love all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do actually like comedy quite a lot,
Yeah.
but I don't really get cast so much in it. So this might be something. I
Yeah.
look
I
forward
mean,
to.
well, so can I ask then? Because obviously you've said about it being a solo show. Is that not like really difficult? Is there not loads of pressure there because you've got
Yeah,
no one else to bounce off?
I this play is 26 A4 sides of monologue, and when I started to learn it, honestly I thought I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'd sit down, and then, of course, because of I would see if Spurs were losing or something like that. I couldn't concentrate. Modern life doesn't allow you
Yeah.
the mental space to learn, but I knew I had to, so I did. So that was the. It took me about 6 weeks of seriously going over and over and da, da, da. And then, of course, making total sense, and that the script doesn't exist. And then I had to do it
Yeah.
to a live audience, and it was really like jumping out of a plane
Yeah.
without a chute, because you're like you say, there was nobody to help me, and it was, yeah, I mean, it took all the reserves I had of all the experience I had to get through it, and I did a week of it, and then by the end of the week I was beginning to fly. But yeah, it is that thing of nobody to help you, and
Yeah.
such immense volume of words, and at speed, because he thinks very quickly and
Yeah.
delivers things pretty quickly. So yeah, it great for me as for my muscle of trying to, you know, be an actor, because directing is is well to say, oh, I think you should do it like this,
Yeah.
but when you have to, somebody else is telling you, no, you
Yeah.
should do it like this. But yeah, no, it's a great challenge, and I recommend anyone who's thinking about it to have a go,
Brilliant. And
because
so
it is very rewarding if you can crack it.
and so how long does that show take then? What's the length
One
of
hour,
the
one
show?
hour and 15 minutes.
Wow, blimey.
So it's non-stop for 1 hour, 15 minutes. I play all the other characters, so
Yeah.
that breaks it up. So it's not, it has a lot of levels.
Yeah.
So and I tell you, an interesting way of learning it. Somebody told me that if you treat the script like an album,
Yeah.
so you learn the tracks. So each bit is a
Yeah.
track, so that that you can, in your brain, when it's freezing, you go, oh, is this tracks next? Because have had moments where nothing's come out, and I've had to really
Yeah.
seriously gather my everything to go on. Yeah, because at
And
one point you think you just can't continue.
no,
I
and
know with those early days, I don't want them back again.
yeah. And obviously it's Sherlock Holmes, and so, so many people have played Sherlock
Yeah.
Holmes, and there's some really like Jeremy Brett and Benedict Cumberbatch and people. Do you take sort of inspiration from them, or do you just think, right, I'm going to do this completely
I had to do
my
it for
way?
myself. I mean, I've loved all of the people that have done it, right back, to the old Basil Rathbones. They're
Yeah.
wonderful, and the modern take of Cumberbatch is superb, but it's very different to the world of the way I do it. Mine is
Uh-huh.
is more Jeremy Brett than anything. But I would never look at him and go, "Oh, he does that with his hand."
Yeah.
I had to do it from my own instincts, and I think that was the trick of it, is not to try and copy anything.
Yeah.
And but there's a lot of people in the Sherlock Holmes world that come and see you, and you
Right.
are, it's a bit like the PE teacher, isn't it? You've got a lot to live up to. But they've been great, and people have really said that the reviews I've had have been astounding,
Yeah.
of how well I do it, and that makes, it gives you the confidence that when you go on, you're going to deliver. Otherwise I wouldn't, if I'd have made a hash of it after the
Yeah.
first couple of weeks, I'd have, ditched it in. But yeah, no, I think it's the height and the physicality and the nose and all this sort of thing, and the style, the classical style, it just works for me on
Uh-huh.
and does well. Yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay. Can I just ask then, did you stay in touch with anyone from Grange Hill when you left?
No.
Right. Okay.
I think I bumped into Stuart
Uh-huh.
a few times. Sally, I think I bumped into as well.
Yeah.
But I didn't, I had a nice coffee with Francesca,
All
um,
right.
in Edinburgh. She was doing a show up there, and
Yeah.
she was fantastic and funny. And then she she is. She's
Yeah,
a wonderful. But no, and it was one of those things where whereas in Doctor Who, I
yeah,
still keep in touch with Sylvester McCoy, because he's a, I had a probably a more long standing with the people that were in that,
right.
even that was short.
Yeah,
There was something I just like you say, and then I disappeared, and that
yeah.
was it, taken out, you know.
Okay. Well, Nigel, we are coming towards the end of the interview, and I have the same few questions that I ask everyone towards the end. They're all Grange Hill related, but don't worry, it's not a quiz, it's not a
All right,
test,
well, that's
so
good. A long time
don't,
ago.
don't worry there. Okay, so recently there's been talk of a Grange Hill movie in the works. Phil Redmond is writing it, and Sarah Sugarman, who was a character Jessica Samuel's very early days, has been slated as the director for it. So, what do you think of the idea of a Grange Hill movie?
Darcy, it'd be a wonderful idea because I mean, it depends. It wouldn't be in sort of back in the day type thing. It would be the modern Grange
Yeah,
Hill, wouldn't it?
yeah,
So I think, because I love education and all that thing. I mean, to to show that the modern, I think it would be very informative, if a bit like sex education, which is so relevant to our time, isn't it? So
yeah,
it's great, and I think if Grange Hill did took the themes of diversity and everything that we're in this very different world to when I was doing Grange Hill.
uh-huh.
I think it'd be a very powerful tool. Yeah, I don't know whether they bring back all the old. There would be some cameos, but I don't think Mr Davies will be there.
Well,
But some of the others will, I'm sure.
that's what I was going to ask you. If you were asked, would we see a return of Mr. Davis?
Yeah, I'll be there like a shot as long as I get to the Indian restaurant in Stanmore at 6 o'clock in the evening rather than
Right.
9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, it'd be great to be associated. I'm proud of being in that
Brilliant.
program. It's a part of our culture
Yeah,
institution,
definitely.
So I was very proud to be in it.
Excellent. So, other than Mr. Davis, who was your favourite character in Grange Hill?
Well, it's it's I really I really like Francesca as a, because she just brought something that was just different, and
Yeah,
the way she coped with everything. And I was when she did the extras, I thought it was wonderful when she did extras.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I liked her, and because I liked Stuart Organ as a bloke, and I
uh,
thought he was really accomplished and smooth as an actor.
yeah,
He was very generous to act with. Never got short tempered. He just seemed it seemed easy for him, and
uh,
I plumped for Mr. Robson.
okay. And so then, if you couldn't have played Mr. Davis, which other character would you have liked to have played?
Well, I would have to have played somebody who was really, really mean,
Right,
and I would invent one that
right.
was so unpleasant and so controversial that they just have to write storyline after storyline after storyline. But I don't know whether I'd like to have been a senior teacher, but because of my knowledge of the sport,
Yeah,
I think I'd love to have developed the PE side, the game side, be the cricket coach and stuff like
yeah.
that.
Or maybe just someone who gets a proper goodbye as well, gets
Yes,
a proper
yeah, see ya.
farewell
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
program.
see ya. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. Yeah, yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Brilliant. Oh,
All
okay then, Nigel. So let
right,
me
Neil.
the final question then.
Yeah,
Why do you think there's still such affection for Grange Hill?
yeah, because it's part of so many people's growing up experience, and it was the time that you used to come home to it in a way,
Yeah.
and it just to me it evokes the changing world of from through those very formative years, and they were
Uh-huh.
everything, in the music and the look and the style and the attitudes, and it's, and it was very focused on the storyline of the kids. They were the stars of it. The teachers were just superfluous to it, really.
Yeah.
And I think we all feel when we watch things about with kids being good at being who they are. It's very important and addictive in a way to watch these kind of scenarios, because we've all been kids ourselves.
Yeah.
We've most of us will have kids, so we don't see much change in behaviour. So
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. Well, Nigel, thank you
oh,
so much
thanks, Neil, very
for
much.
coming on. Obviously, for those of you that are listening, I've had some terrible technical issues before we got to record this one. So this is actually the second time we've tried to record this one. So thanks again, Nigel, for coming on.
Pleasure.
It's
Good
been
luck.
brilliant. It's been brilliant speaking to you
Yeah.
and getting your experiences on your time on Grange Hill. So thank you so much again. And for anyone that's listening, I'll speak to you next time. Cheers. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.